What challenges do food manufacturers face in sourcing ingredients? Can we order small pack sizes and quantities? How to be innovative and limit the R&D costs at the same time? Do we have competitive prices for ingredients? Are we covering demand, costs, and resolving supply issues? Listen to our food ingredients experts discuss the biggest questions facing buying food ingredients today. Welcome to Want to Taste Talks Food Ingredients.
Welcome to another episode of Want to Taste Talks Food Ingredients, where we delve into the latest trends and challenges in the world of food ingredients. I'm your host, Andrada Spatariu, and the focus of this episode is on gut health, a topic that is moving quickly from niche to mainstream. And joining me for this conversation is Jasper Schouten, CEO of Want to Taste, who shares how innovation, fiber-forward product development, and consumer expectations are influencing how new products are created and positioned. And to uncover the science behind it all, I'm joined by Sue McKay from NutriLeads, who explains the targeted benefits of Benicaros, a plant-based precision prebiotic upcycled from carrots with clinically proven immune and gut health benefits, even at a low dose. So if you're developing in this space, or planning to, this conversation brings together market insights and scientific context to help guide your next steps. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so glad you're here because, let's be honest, there's no better way to spend your next 45 minutes than talking about gut feelings. The scientifically backed kind, of course. I'm Andrada Spatariu, your host, marketer, and the person who thought this would be a great idea. So if it goes brilliantly, you're welcome. If not, I think my gut clearly needs a better prebiotic. But I'm not doing this alone. We've got two fantastic guests with us today. And trust me, you'll want to hear what they have to. Quick reminder, there is a Q&A at the end, so send your questions anytime, publicly in the chat with your first name only displayed, or sneak them in privately if you prefer. Now let's get to our speakers, but we're skipping the usual intros. Picture this. You're on the cover of the top food industry magazine. What does it say about you? And let's start with you, Jasper.
Well, thank you very much, Andrada. What would it say? I think it would say how an industry veteran changed the B2B food ingredients industry with a digital platform. And then with a subtitle, in 2020, Jasper and Arjen started Want to Taste with the objective to drive productivity and efficiency in selling and sourcing ingredients using digital tools. And it actually originates a little bit from my 17 years of experience in the industry, where I saw a lot of inefficiencies in the selling and in the sourcing of ingredients. And at the same time, I saw a lot of innovation happening on the tech side. So I thought, why not combine it? And that's where Want to Taste comes in.
All right. Thank you, Jasper. Now I am curious about you, Sue. What does your cover magazine says?
Well, thanks for the question, Andrada. I think it would say something like, as a nutrition and health manager at NutriLeads, Sue is passionate about turning science into real solutions, and then solutions that people can really benefit from. So I have with the background of nutrition and years of experience in the health and wellness space, I love making the connection between research and business. So really making sure that innovative ingredients don't just stay in the lab, but they really get out there into the market where people can benefit from the actives.
Okay, thank you, Sue. This is going to be a very expert-like magazine with you two here. But now you know who we are. Well, I am curious to know about you, those that joined. So I would love to hear the magazine cover story of each one of you. But don't worry, I'm not putting you on the spot like I did with them. Let's just start simple. What industry do you come from? See the poll that appeared now in the chat, in the interactions button, and make sure you hit vote before we can see where you are from. Okay, so I see beverage, dairy alternatives, snacks, supplements. I'm glad to have you all here. I say we hit it off because I have some questions for our speakers. So, believe it or not, I am on Instagram and TikTok, and I see a lot of content on gut health. Literally, there's millions of mentions of gut health and gut health matter, signaling strong consumer interest. So, Jesper, can you tell me more about what's happening in the gut health market?
Sure, I can. Overall, we see a lot of innovation in the market, in new food products coming into the market space. And almost all position themselves to be a more healthy version than the previous one they launched. In general, still the focus is on salt, fat, and sugar, but we do see an increasing number of products coming to the market with high fiber claims. So that is definitely gaining ground. Looking at what is happening in the US with brands like Poppi and Olipop, we see a complete change of the soda industry in the US. And certainly when a company like PepsiCo starts to join the game, who recently bought Poppi, this will be a major change in the soda industry. Now, if we look in Europe, we see in Europe a brand called Gutshot that is taking off quite rapidly. But you also see that people are adding fibers to improve the nutritional profile of the products. And the nutritional profile is playing more and more a role in the decision-making of the consumers. Lastly, we see an interesting move to adding fibers from tapioca or inulin because of their low glycemic index. So overall, there's a lot of things happening in the gut health space. And the best part is that you actually can find a lot of these ingredients also on the Want to Taste platform.
Aha, okay. So from a product development and product innovation perspective, I see there is a lot of room to play in the gut health market. But what do today's consumers expect from these products?
They see that in Europe, there's a general understanding that fibers contribute to gut health, right? And that's driven through three things, which is the rising number of product innovations in the market, which is creating a lot of awareness already. You can see it in media, social media, and on social platforms where there's a lot of talk about gut health, as you mentioned, Andrada. And number three is that COVID has made people rethink the positioning of food and its relation to mental and physical well-being. Looking at the overall, you also see a shift in towards more plant-based eating, the protein transition that is pushing fiber-rich and natural ingredients into the spotlight. But there is a catch because consumers won't just buy anything. They do want the taste to be great and they do want the price to be right. And certainly at this point in time, people are careful in spending money. So what they actually like is to see a product that has more than one benefit. So preferably a couple of benefits. So what does this mean for the product developer? The product developer needs to choose those ingredients that deliver on taste, but also on price. And they need, next to that, to tick a couple of boxes. It needs to be natural, it needs to be sustainable, and it needs to bring real health benefits. So it's not just about the label, it's really about bringing the right claims to the market. So now you might ask, okay, Jasper, where can I find these ingredients? And I will repeat myself. They are available on the Want to Taste platform, and they have a lot of additional information, such as technical data sheets, certifications, material safety data sheets, and in a lot of cases, there's some additional information how to use these specific ingredients in different applications.
Okay, thank you, Jasper. I hear everything is on Want to Taste to match those demands from consumers. So far, I'm hearing trends are checked, consumers are covered. But now I'm curious again about you in the audience. So from idea to market, where are you with gut health innovation? And find our second poll again and make sure you hit the vote button. Okay, so I see some testing, some in the middle of development, looking for ingredients. Okay, so you're already on the wave. Let's give it a few more seconds. Rejuvenating existing product lines. Some are already far. But nevertheless, it's interesting to see the mix. No matter where you are, one common thread is the need to understand how gut health ingredients actually work. And that's what we are getting into next. I'm turning it over to Sue, who's going to walk us through the technical side of gut health and the role of Benicaros in product innovation. And Jasper, I say you join the audience for this one. No VIP passes, sorry. If you've got questions for Sue, add them to the chat and be part of the discussion. And let's see what's on your mind. Sue, now please delight us with your science.
Thanks very much, Andrada. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you also to the Want to Taste team for organising this webinar and giving us the opportunity to present our work and to talk about the right prebiotic for proven gut health benefits. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm Sue McKay, Nutrition and Health Manager at NutriLeads, and I'm responsible for the science that underpins the benefits of our ingredient Benicaros. And at NutriLeads, what we do is develop and supply award-winning plant-based precision fibres that are clinically proven to improve health. Then everyone knows that the gut is the organ that we use where our food comes in, it enters the body, it's broken down, it's digested and absorbed. But did you know that your gut is also the major immune organ in your body? It's the home to up to 80% of your immune system, which is located in and around the gut. But the gut is also home to trillions of microbes that influence almost every aspect of your health and well-being. So these microbes form a dynamic ecosystem, which is known as the gut microbiome. And this is unique to every individual. We all have our own microbiome, and it's a little bit like your fingerprint. It's really individual and for you. And what we can do is influence the health of our microbiota by the choices that we make and the food that we eat. So it's really important that we eat the right food to be able to feed the good bugs in our microbiota, and which also helps us regulate our health. We know that prebiotics are an excellent source of nutrition for the beneficial microbes in the gut. And as prebiotics are broken down by the microbiota in the large intestine, they can lead to the production of beneficial components like short-chain fatty acids, for example. And these components are crucial for your health. For example, some short-chain fatty acids are involved in strengthening the gut barrier. Others can regulate normal function of the immune system, and others are also known to regulate body weight or even brain health. And this is really key for us to know. But there are so many different sorts of prebiotics. So the different types that you can see on the market are included in this overview. And which ones do you choose then to feed your microbiota? They're all slightly different, and they're all derived from different sources. Some are from plants, some are from yeasts, some are from milk, and they all have different properties. So some prebiotics are also known to have an impact on the texture of a finished product, for example, guar gum. But there are others that are used as sweeteners, like lactulose. But there are also prebiotics that are well known for delivering health benefits. And there you can think of fructooligosaccharides or the galacto-oligosaccharides and inulin. But each of these different prebiotics also has a different chemical structure, and it can range from either single sugar molecules, or also known as monosaccharides like tagatose, or they could also be built up from long chains of single sugar molecules or monomers like inulin, which is a chain of fructose molecules together. So these different structures and different types of prebiotics can also all have different effects on the end benefit that you're looking for. We also know that there are upcoming prebiotics known as rhamnogalactronan 1, or also known as RG1, and that's the prebiotic that I'd like to tell you a little bit more about today. So this is our active ingredient, and to give you a little bit more information on what it looks like in more detail in its structure, you can see on the next slide that it has a complex structure that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. So let me start first by saying, what is RG1? What is rhamnogalacturonan 1? This is a part of the pectin molecule that can be found in the cell wall of all plants and vegetables. And what we do is extract this from the plant cell wall. And you can see on the structure at the bottom that it has a very complex structure with lots of branches and side chains. It's also what you can see from the different shapes, so the circles or the stars or the triangles, these depict different monomers. So there are different sugars within the molecule and different linkages between these molecules, which makes RG1 or Benicaros, the brand name of our ingredient, that makes it such a unique fiber with a complex structure. So I'll first take you or explain in high level how Benicaros works. Because of its complex structure, the way that it's built up, as you eat it, it passes through your stomach unchanged. It's not affected by the acid from the stomach. It's also not broken down by the digestive enzymes in the GI tract. But as it passes through your small intestine, it can interact with the immune cells that are located in and around the gut as part of that larger immune organ. This, in turn, trains the innate immune system and the innate immune cells from the innate immune system. And once these cells are trained, they are able to respond smarter and faster and stronger to any challenges that they encounter in the future. For example, a common cold. When Benicaros passes the small intestine into the large intestine, it's still intact, but as it reaches the large intestine, that's where it provides the nutrition for the beneficial bacteria that are there. And the bugs in the large intestine then break it down and turn it into specific beneficial components, like the short-chain fatty acids that I mentioned. And these short-chain fatty acids are also important because they can also play a role in regulating your immune health and other health aspects. So what really sets Benicaros apart from the other prebiotics? And as I mentioned in the previous slide, it really is about the unique structure that it has. And this structure, we know that our ingredient, we know that Benicaros has this complex structure, but it's good to understand how this structure works within the colon and how this effect is different for different types of prebiotics. And I'll try to explain that in the following few slides, where I'll explain the precision prebiotic concept. So I mentioned earlier, everybody has their own unique ecosystem with different microbes in their gut. And we know that many prebiotic ingredients are also classed as dietary fibers. From the work that I'm going to describe you now, we know that not all prebiotics are created equally. So what you can see here, and based on studies that were done in the past on other fibers and other prebiotics, we know that the studies that were set up and aimed to change the composition of the gut microbiota and also to influence or impact the effect of the microbiota on the production of short-chain fatty acids, these studies often led to variable results. And it could be that these results are variable because of the variability that we all have in our gut microbiota. But recently, the group from Professor Hammaker in the United States, they postulated that these differences could also have something to do with the structure of the fibers. So they described a concept talking about the specificity of fibers, where they describe low specificity fibers as those prebiotics, for example, that have a very simple structure like inulin or phos, and these are built up just from single sugar molecules. These low specificity fibers are also utilized by many different bacteria, so they can be broken down by lots of different bacteria in the gut. And this leads to a sort of race to ferment, and this results then in variable responses in the studies that have been seen. At the other end of the spectrum, you have high specificity fibers, and these are fibers that have an uncommon molecular structure, for example, xanthan, or they're fibers that are not very common in the human diet. So we don't always have the right microbiota, the right bacteria in the gut to be able to break down these fibers. And in that case, it could be that one person does have the right bacteria and another person doesn't have the right bacteria. So you will see a responder, you will see a response in one person, but you won't see a response in the other person. And this all or nothing effect is also not really what you would like to see as the response of a prebiotic fiber. In the middle, you have medium to high specificity fibers. And these are fibers with a complex structure that can be utilized by a specific consortia of microorganisms. And basically what this means is that the different microorganisms in the large intestine, they need each other. One group starts to break down the complex structure by chopping off the side chains, and then other bugs can reach in and start breaking down the backbone of RG1. And because of this way of working, where there is this complex interaction, we find that there are consistent responses in the breakdown of this type of fiber. And that's also why we've classed Benicaros as a precision prebiotic, because we see these consistent effects. So what you can see in this slide really is that structure does matter. And this is just to illustrate some of the different structures that I talked about just now. On the left-hand side, you've got the low specificity fibers with examples of FOS, GOS, and inulin. On the right-hand side, you can see the complex structure of xanthan. And in the middle, it's the schematic structure of Benicaros that's built up of at least 4 or 5 different monosaccharides that you can see by the different shapes, the circles, the stars, the triangles, and the different branching and side chains that we see here. So building on what we've seen from this graph, how do we then know that our ingredient, the Benicaros, is a precision prebiotic? Well, we did a really cool experiment to be able to show this, and that's what you can see in this slide, where we used the ex vivo cipher technology from Cryptobiotics. We used Benicaros as a medium specificity fiber. We used inulin as a model for a low specificity fiber, and we used xanthan as a model for a high specificity fiber. And we took fecal samples from 24 healthy adults, and with these samples we did a batch fermentation experiment. And what this means basically is that the bugs were fed the different types of fibers. We collected the samples and we looked to see which microorganisms were growing during the batch fermentation and which metabolites did they produce. And what we saw from this data was a clear increase in beneficial microorganisms like bifidobacteria and anti-inflammatory species in the Benicaros group. We also saw a consistent increase in the health beneficial metabolites like short-chain fatty acids and also indole-3 propionic acid. And we also saw a healthy gut ecosystem. What was very interesting from this study was that we saw that the fermentation of Benicaros led to 40% less gas production than inulin, which is also a potentially interesting benefit for consumers who do notice that high doses of some prebiotics cause them to be bloated and have flatulence. And the really cool thing about Benicaros is that it already shows this effect at a dose as low as 300 milligrams per day. So just going into a little bit more detail and to show that Benicaros really is for all gut types, the 24 fecal samples that we had from that we used in this study were really representative of the 3 key enterotypes that you see across humans. And the reason that microbiologists use enterotypes is because it gives them a way to be able to understand and cluster data from enormous amounts of information from the individual microbiota types that we all have. And by doing this clustering, we could see from our data that there was a very consistent response in the types of microbiota that were growing due to the fermentation of Benicaros. And here you can see in the green column, the responses are very similar across the purple, blue, and green enterotypes on the different rows. If you look on the right-hand side, you also see that the green enterotype example, there's no response. And as I mentioned before, you can see all or nothing responses with high specificity fibers. So here for xanthan, it's clear that there's no response in one group, but there is a response in 2 others. And there are also good responses from the fermentation of inulin. The difference with Benicaros is that the inulin responses are varied. They're not consistent. So building, now that you know these different types of structure matter, we'd like to ask you a question. So if you would like to go to the poll and answer the question on which aspects of a prebiotic are most important for your product development. And after you've made your choices, don't forget to click on vote, and Andrada, I think, will share the results with you.
Various answers. We can keep it going. I can see people want all the benefits. They want fiber claims, easy formulations, consistent results. But let's see what else Sue has to tell us about Benicaros.
Okay, then I'll move on to the next slide. And the last part of the presentation today is really going into detail of our clinical studies. So sharing with you the clinically proven benefits related to Benicaros. Here you can see the design of our pivotal immune intervention study that was done in healthy adults and with a response to a controlled viral challenge. So we believe that if you want to show a real immune benefit, you also need to challenge the system to show that the system is responding to the immune challenge. So if you imagine your immune system as being your fire brigade in the body, if you want to test the fire brigade at how fast they are and how well they do their work, you'll set a fire and then wait to see how quickly they respond and how quickly they put out the fire. And that's exactly what we did in this clinical study. But instead of setting a fire, then we exposed all of the volunteers to a common cold virus, a rhinovirus, at a low dose and a mild variant. So we knew that they would get common cold symptoms, but they wouldn't be very, very sick because of it. And the way that this study was set up was that we asked the volunteers to take Benicaros as a powder, and they sprinkled it on their breakfast items of choice every morning for 8 weeks. And then at the start of the study, we collected a fecal sample and a blood sample. And after 8 weeks, again, we collected a fecal sample and a blood sample. Then at the start of the 9th week, everybody was challenged intranasally with the rhinovirus, and we collected samples from within the nose on day 3, 6, 9, and 13 so that we could measure immune responses. And we also asked volunteers to fill in validated questionnaires every day so that we could monitor the symptoms that they experienced, but also the severity and the duration of those symptoms. And then we analyzed that data to also be able to understand the effects of the intervention with Benicaros on their immune responses, but also on their quality of life. So first, it's good to mention that Benicaros does provide multiple health benefits supported by this strong clinical evidence. And I'll start here by showing that Benicaros had prebiotic properties. And what we saw in the fecal samples after 8 weeks compared to in the Benicaros group compared to the placebo group was a selective increase in microbial richness. We also saw an increase in bifidobacteria, especially Bifidobacterium longum and Bifidobacterium adolescentis. And we also saw increases in species of bacteria that are known to produce butyrate and propionate. And these are 2 short-chain fatty acids that are also very important for your immune health. After the viral challenge, when we looked at the immune responses, we found that Benicaros accelerated local protective antiviral and immune responses. And this was seen in the samples that we collected from the nose, where we measured different signaling molecules and expression of genes. What we also found was that the people in the Benicaros group had less severe symptoms. So the impact of the rhinovirus challenge was less in the Benicaros group, the people taking Benicaros had up to 33% less severe symptoms, and then think of symptoms like a runny nose or a sore throat or a cough. But also the duration of their symptoms was up to 43% less. And that means basically up to the cold disappeared 2 to 3 days earlier in the people taking Benicaros compared to the group not taking Benicaros. And this can also be described as a faster recovery from the cold. So Benicaros really accelerates recovery from a viral infection. And finally, we also found that Benicaros helped to preserve the quality of life. So you also know when you have a cold, you feel down, you feel sleepy, you don't really want to get out of bed on some days. And in the people in the Benicaros group, we noticed that they really did stay out of that stay in bed zone. They were healthier, they could just get on with their everyday activities, and the cold had less of an impact than in the people in the control group. In our most recent study, the design looks like this. This study was finished towards the end of last year. And what we wanted to do here was expand on the data that we already have, but we wanted to understand if we could see the prebiotic effect earlier than 8 weeks. And we also decided to look at a dose that was slightly higher. And in this study, we collected fecal samples before the study so that we could stratify the study. And we had groups of people that had a low fiber intake and low bifidobacterium counts. We also had people in a group with high fiber, low BIF, with low fiber, high BIF, so that the groups were stratified and gave us a very good idea of where and when we saw clear prebiotic effects of the intervention. And then we also collected blood samples, and then every 4 weeks, while the volunteers took the test articles in the form of a capsule 2 times a day at breakfast, every 4 weeks we collected their fecal samples and we measured the bifidobacteria responses. We also asked the people in this study to fill in questionnaires so that we could see if there were any effects on their gastrointestinal symptom ratings. We could also monitor their physical activity and check their quality of life. But I'm afraid I have to leave you with a cliffhanger for this part of the work, because the manuscript is now in preparation. So I can't reveal any of the data at this point, but hopefully we will be able to tell you more towards the end of May. So if you can visit us at the VitaFoods booth in Barcelona, we'll be happy to tell you more about that, or follow us on LinkedIn, because that's where we always will share our good news as soon as possible with the outside world. So what does this clinical data really tell us? It helps us to prove how Benicaros works in the body. So just repeating what I said earlier, when you eat Benicaros, it passes through the stomach unchanged because it's not affected by the acid in the stomach or the digestive enzymes in our GI tract. It interacts with immune cells in the small intestine, and it helps them become more responsive to a challenge, which we saw in the rhinovirus study that I showed you just now. We also saw that as it goes to the large intestine, it is broken down, and we see the production of small short-chain fatty acids. So we also know that with as the immune cells are primed and as the short-chain fatty acids are produced, they can also pass from the gut into the bloodstream. So this helps them reach other parts of the body. So you take Benicaros as an ingredient with a food or a beverage or a supplement, but it is effective also in locations like the lung or the airways when there is a viral infection at that location, which is a really big benefit. It's not just a local effect that stays in the gut. And the data that we have with Benicaros also helps us hypothesize on what other benefits could Benicaros potentially deliver. And I've tried to summarize that into this schematic, where at the top you see our existing clinical evidence, where we show there's a faster initiation of protective immune responses, and there is more resistance to respiratory infections. We also have emerging evidence showing a healthy microbiota that becomes more stable. And also that there is evidence for a more robust gut barrier. We see more resilience to gut infections and potentially reduction in diarrhea during gut infections. There's a faster resolution of inflammatory responses as well as antioxidant effects that we've seen in our preclinical data. And the preclinical evidence that I didn't present today, but that you can look at our manuscripts on the NutriLeads website. It also suggests that the effects of Benicaros could also support better mood and well-being, also support metabolic health, and even help manage the effects of allergy symptoms. What we don't know yet, where we don't have our own evidence, but based on evidence from the scientific literature, we also think that the prebiotic benefits of Benicaros may even be helpful when looking at skin health in future. So the question now is, will Benicaros be the next ingredient to innovate your next product? So in a nutshell, Benicaros, it's plant-based and it's upcycled. It's a precision prebiotic fiber that's effective at a dose as low as 300 milligrams per day, and it delivers immune and gut health benefits. And here I'd also like to mention that it's an award-winning ingredient. We've been chosen as given the first prize in a number of different categories across the last few years. And in this slide, you can see a few potential of products that could carry Benicaros. It's a very easy to use ingredient and can be applied in muesli bars, for example. It's easily applied into beverages and foods, can be used in gummy bears and formulated as a powder or as capsules. So if you'd like to find out more, then I would say you should scan this Want to Taste QR code and go to the Want to Taste website, where you can get much more background information on the ingredient and also request a sample for you to be able to test in your sites and to be able to take your innovations further. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. And then I'll hand it back over to Andrada.
Thank you, Sue. That was a great walkthrough of the science and potential of Benicaros. And now it's over to you, our audience. We're opening up the Q&A, and I'm also bringing Jasper back to kick it off. He's had a nice break in the audience, and disclaimer, he always has questions. Good luck, Sue. We're starting with his. We'll move into your questions right after, so keep them coming in the chat. And it's clear that we're going a bit over time, but I think this live Q&A is also super interesting, so bear with us. Nevertheless, there's going to be a recording, so if you have other meetings, you can rewatch it later, but I would definitely encourage you to stay live. So let's bring Jasper back.
Yeah, there I was. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Sue. I think you did an amazing presentation of your gold, as you call it. So obviously, I do have a question, but I saw already quite a number of questions in the chat. So if you have still questions that you want to add, please type them into the Q&A chat so that we can ask them. But a question for you, Sue. I heard you talk about the minimum, the low dosage, 300 milligrams per day. But for an adult as myself, how many days do I need to really take it before I can actually experience the benefits?
Well, from the immune study that I described to you, we gave the ingredient for 8 weeks, and then we did the measurements after 8 weeks. So we know that for sure you will see a prebiotic effect after 8 weeks and also experience the immune benefit if you were to be exposed to an airway infection, for example. But from the new study, which only lasted for 4 weeks, we know that we already see that effect in that short time.
Okay. Well, that's very promising. And then, of course, I like the orange. I like the carrot. So if I would just eat a carrot, would that also do the trick?
Well, I think I may even have forgotten to mention that we isolate RG1, the carrot RG1, from carrots that have been that are upcycled. So the carrots generally they're used as the starting material for producing carrot juice, and then what's left over is the pomace. And from that pomace we upcycle, and we have our own technology to extract the RG1, which we then further refine into the fine powder that can be used in products for foods and beverages. If you were to just eat the carrot, the RG1 would be broken down, or the material from the carrot would be broken down as it goes through your stomach and goes through your GI tract. But the RG1 wouldn't be available at the right amount and in the right place to also have the immune benefit. So by us enriching or by us already taking it out of the carrot, it gives you the opportunity for the RG1 to interact with the immune system before it has the second effect in the gut. So I would advise going for an ingredient like Benicaros, and that would save you having to cook lots of carrots every day, trying to get to the right amount of RG1 to get the benefits.
I like a carrot, but not every day for 30 days, I think.
No, but I would definitely advise keep eating carrots, but you can take Benicaros for your RG1.
Exactly. Andrada, I think you will continue with the questions, right?
Yes, we got many interesting questions here. So let's start with this one. Does Benicaros has any taste nor any color that would change the formula?
No, it's a very nice ingredient. It has a slightly off-white beige color, but if you bring it into solution, it's colorless. It's not cloudy, and it might have a very slight sour taste. But if you the products that we've tested it in, and when we've tested it in mixed in a yogurt, for example, or mixed in a drink, you don't notice that at all. And that's again a benefit of having a low dose.
Even more benefits.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to another question. Can I easily combine Benicaros with probiotics or other ingredients in one product?
Yes, I think I don't see that should be an issue. It's a fiber. I think it would be good to think first, are you going to combine it with a live probiotic? Then you would need to do some testing just to check that the probiotic isn't actually going to start breaking down Benicaros in the product. But mixing it with vitamins and minerals and other food components, no, I don't expect any issues at all.
All right. Getting to the next one. Prebiotics are not tolerated well by all people. For certain people, it can increase gas production in the gut. Is this also the case for Benicaros?
From the studies that we did, so the 8-week-long study, we didn't have any complaints from the more than 100 volunteers that took part in the study for 8 weeks. And in the second study, we also never had any complaints or adverse effects. And I think it's good to remind you again from the in vitro or the work that we did with the Cypher technology. There we saw less gas production as Benicaros was fermented compared to inulin. So I think that, I don't expect gut discomfort in products that contain Benicaros. I take it every day, no problems.
Okay, so you're part of the clinical trial. Next question is it allowed to have the clinic claims for Benicaros on the label?
The clinical claims?
Yeah.
I think that depends where you are, because it depends on the regulatory framework of different countries. So in the United States, for example, they are allowed to talk about the beneficial effects by using structure function claims. In Europe, for example, that's not possible because there isn't an approved health claim related to this ingredient and immune health at the moment. But the only immune claim that you can make in Europe at the moment is based on vitamins and a few vitamins and minerals.
Okay, so you basically gave the answer to another question about the EU, which is great. The next question would be, what is the maximum solubility level of Benicaros?
That's a good question, and I don't think, as the Nutrition and Health Manager, that I have the right answer off the top of my head. So I think it would be great if you could forward that question to us, and then we can ask the product guys to get back to you.
Yeah.
So I believe this also falls for the thermostability of Benicaros, right?
Well, we know that it's thermostable at lots of different temperatures. You can easily put it through pasteurization. That's not an issue. And basically, Benicaros is a very soluble ingredient. But I think the way you formulated the question just now, I'm not sure if somebody's looking to put a large amount of Benicaros in a very small volume, and that's something that we'd need to check on. But
yeah, that was the first question, I think. And then the second question was more on the thermostability.
Yeah. But it's very stable at lots of different temperatures and high pressure.
Okay. We have one more. How do we explain that certain people thrive on zero fiber diets, such as carnivore diet, and see improvement of several health conditions, skin, gut, etc.?
That's a good question, and that's something I have thought about, but I really can't come up with the right answer. It might have something to do with us all having a very unique gut microbiota. So depending on how you're born, what you've been fed as a child growing up, and how healthy you are to start off with, I think that already makes a very big difference on what you eat and what you thrive on. From a nutrition perspective, I wouldn't be an advocate of taking fiber out of the diet, because in my understanding, there's an increasing fiber gap, and we need to take more fibers to improve our health. I can also understand if you haven't been eating much fiber and then you suddenly start to eat a lot, you will get gut discomfort. So the way to tackle that is to build it up slowly and use different types of fibers. And I try to follow the rule of eating at least 30 different plants per week. So just having that variety and different types of fibers, and then supplementing with something like Benicaros, where you know that this ingredient has proven benefits for immune and gut health.
Thank you, Sue. And we got one more question. And if you have any other, please keep them coming. Otherwise, we will be closing the session very soon. So is Benicaros available in Asian markets?
Yes, it is.
That was a quick one.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if then people come through the Want to Taste website or if they contact NutriLeads directly.
Yeah, I think you have different routes there across the globe. I think you guys are doing quite well in Japan, which is obviously a very health conscious market. So that's good.
There was a question about price, but for that I say it is super easy to request a quote on Want to Taste. It comes within minutes, and you can discuss for different quantities in case you have special requests. And if there's no new questions, I will say that this is a wrap. Thank you for sticking with us even through the small overtime. And as I said, the webinar recording will be shared with you soon, because some conversations are just too good for a one-time digestion. Thank you, everybody, including Sue and Jasper, for coming and for sharing their insights with us. And until next time.